Welcome to CBS Sports HQ Football Happy Hour. I'm Jenny Dell. Over the next hour, we're talking bowl games, making sure you're covered with your picks as we enter the heart of bowl season. But first, we're going to take a quick look into the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. Kent State against Wyoming. That game kicked off at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. The Golden Flashes, they were knocked out of the MAC championship game, and the Cowboys scratched out a 6-win season after a 4-0 start. You see that game all tied up at 7 right now with 6:52 left in the first. And tonight, you got the Roadrunners going up against the San Diego State Aztecs. That game will start at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. All right, fellas, we're welcoming in Brady Quinn and Danny Kanell. We're going to kick things off with the Frisco Bowl. So we got UTSA and San Diego State, two teams that have never met before. The Aztecs coming off a loss in the Mountain West Championship. UTSA capturing the hearts of San Antonio, winning the CUSA Championship, their best season by far. Now, the Aztecs are favored, but that wasn't always the case. This is definitely flip-flopped. So the over-under is set at 49. What do you guys think? Let's start with you, Brady.
I love the under in this game. Even like the bottom line is when you look at these two teams, both have two salty defenses, and they like to run the football. Greg Bell with San Diego State, Sincere McCormick with UTSA. But I like UTSA when they were giving points in this case. So if you're going to give me 3 points, I'll gladly take it. I think they have a more balanced offensive attack with Frank Harris at quarterback. And San Diego State has battled some quarterback issues throughout the course of the season. So I'm on the side of UTSA here. I'll take the 3 points, but the best play in this one is the under. And that's always going to be the best play, Danny, anytime San Diego State's involved.
Yeah, no doubt about it, Brady. I am on the other side of the line. I like the Aztecs, but I'm with you on the under. San Diego State has one of the best rushing attacks, but their rush defense also one of the best in the country. So there's other news out of this game. This probably to me has been one of the more depressing research times, like to research these bowls, because you're not studying film, you're watching who's going to be out for this game. And with Sincere McCormick out because he's opted out for the NFL draft, UTSA also has a slew. There's reports coming out they might have 10 players out for this game for various reasons. And, you know, it's just kind of reality of where we are. Some of them disciplined, some of them academic, some of them COVID-related, whatever issues they are. San Diego State's going to have an advantage. UTSA will be playing shorthanded. That's the reason for the big line movement. So I'm going to follow the line movement. I'm going to lay the 3 points with the Aztecs, but I'm with Brady. I think this will be a low-scoring game. Frank Harris is good, but I don't think he's going to be able to do it without that rushing attack. So give me the Aztecs, but we both are on the same page with that under.
Definitely changes things when players are in and out, whether it's COVID or they're going to the draft or whatever it may be. So we'll keep an eye on it, but very good stuff. UTSA, the over total in 5 of the past 6 games there. All right, we got some big games coming up on December 28th. So some incredible matchups with this one starting at noon. We got Houston at Auburn. We're going to go through all of these games as we go. The Holiday Bowl, one of my favorite bowl games every single year. UCLA, NC State, and that one. We've got the Liberty Bowl in Memphis, Texas Tech, Mississippi State. A lot of exciting games coming up, but first we are going to start with Tuesday afternoon. Houston enters with a top 20 ranking, and they're going to get a test in an SEC opponent in Auburn there. Now, despite the rankings, the Tigers are favored by 2.5. So some key players already out in this one, as we were discussing. It's just going to continue. Danny, your thoughts?
All right, so you have no Bo Nix, who's off, and he made his grand announcement to go to Oregon. You have no Tank Bigsby. You have no Zacoby McClain for Auburn. And then for Houston, they don't have Marcus Jones, who's one of their best players, an electric return guy. So this, to me, is one of those games you really have to look kind of at depth charts. And if we're going down the depth charts and we're looking at past recruiting rankings, I'm going to go with the talent on Auburn's roster and trust them. A little bit more depth, a little bit more ability to go down, bring some young players up who will be excited to play in this game, which will be in their backyard. So I'm going to lay the points with Auburn. I'll lay the 2.5. TJ Finley has proved more than capable as a backup, was even pushing Bo Nix at times throughout the season. Jarquez Hunter, young running back, he'll take the majority of the reps without Tank Bigsby there. He was an all-SEC freshman team candidate for this Auburn running attack. So I think they'll control the line of scrimmage. And I do think this will be a lower scoring game. I think that Auburn will be working on the run game. Brian Harsin wants to be physical, and I think they'll be able to slow down Houston's offense, despite they've been able to put up some points throughout the American. I think that comes to a halt versus Auburn. So I think a lower scoring game, I'll take the under, and I'll lay the 2.5 with Auburn.
I'm with you on the side of Auburn here. I still think regardless of Bigsby being out, they'll still be able to run the football, and TJ Finley will play a part in that for Auburn. They are going up against the good Houston defense against the run. They were number 1 in the AAC earlier this year. Here's what you look for a lot of times in bowl games, though, especially with a group of 5 team like Houston. You're saying, all right, who else have they played this year? They lost versus Texas Tech to start the season. They ran off 11 wins and then lost again in the conference championship game to Cincinnati. So I just think there's a talent gap between these two teams, regardless of what the ranking shows. And at the end of the day, Auburn would prove to be the more superior talented team. So you lay the 2.5 points here. I am on the other side of this one, though. I do think Houston can put up some points. Clayton Tune's been solid this year. So I think it hits the over, maybe not by a lot, but I definitely think they can get over the 51.5 as well.
Both like in Auburn at noon Eastern on the 28th. Up next, we got the First Responders Bowl there. At 9-3 Air Force, they had a really solid season. All 3 losses were only by 1 score. It's still 6-6. You got Louisville there. They're favored in this game, but just barely 1.5 points. 55.5 for the point spread there, or the over-under. So Brady, we'll start with you. Who do you like?
Well, look, anytime you have an option team involved like you do in Air Force, who leads the country in rushing, the under's always going to be the play, bottom line. And even some of their defensive stats are skewed because how many limited possessions their opponents face. So, look, Brad Roberts is the bell cow running back in the triple option attack. You'll see him get the bulk of the carries and what they like to operate and how they like to run. But the player to watch is going to be Malik Cunningham. He's the most dynamic player, a top 5 product in the ACC this year in regards to top 5 offense. Second on the team in rushing. Leads the team in rushing, but he's just a pleasure to watch. His playmaking ability too on the outside. So I'm going to go ahead and lay the 1.5 here, but I still think the under is the better play of the 2.
All right, Jenny, you know what happens when we agree. We let it rain with that confetti.
Confetti!
We got some lock unity here. Same side of the boat on this one. I'm in total agreement with Brady here. There it is. Let it rain. Let it come from all over the place. And for a lot of the points that he done on, Malik Cunningham is really, there was a little bit of controversy because he didn't make the All-ACC any first, second, or third team All-ACC quarterback, but it's because the conference had a bunch of good quarterbacks playing in it. And then I think the reason that I like Louisville and the under is typically when Air Force plays, no one likes playing a triple option, especially their version of it. But usually that's within the course of a season. Things are a little bit tight. You're cramming preparation with extra bowl practices to prep for it. I do think Louisville will have a better game for it. Zeke Daniels has had a fantastic year as the quarterback at Air Force. Troy Calhoun has raved about him. He's been a big part of the success. But ultimately, I think Louisville proves to be too much, but I'm in agreement with Brady. I think this will be a lower scoring game as Air Force, their whole design is to slow the game down. I think they'll do that, but I think Louisville will come out on top, so I'll lay the points as well.
Always fun when you guys agree. Louisville is 13-3 as favorites in its last 16 games. The First Responder Bowl, that will be at 3:15 p.m. Eastern on the 28th. Okay. Up next, we got the Liberty Bowl. Mike Leach against his former team. I mean, could you write this up any better? Mississippi State heavily favored against Texas Tech. The styles of these two teams is similar because of the fact that Leach, over-under is at 59.5. So, Danny, we'll start with you.
So this one's a tough one for me. I mean, Texas Tech, weird year. Matt Wells is fired when they're 5-3. They kind of limp to the finish. They bring in their coach and Joey McGuire, who's, been there kind of oversight. He'll be a part of this game, but it's weird. They've had different quarterbacks play. And yet they've gone out there and they've fought still till the end. Now they kind of limp to the finish. And Mississippi State, Will Rogers, talking about quarterbacks, has had a spectacular year, as you would expect he would in Mike Leach's air raid system. I think it's just too many points. I think 9, especially in this bowl season, we've seen a lot of the underdogs cover. I'll follow that trend, but I do think we'll see an overplay here. I think you'll see a lot of points from both of these teams. Texas Tech is used to the air raid. They're used to seeing offenses that throw it around, playing in the Big 12. So give me Texas Tech as the dog with all those points, but I think it'll be a higher scoring affair, so I'll take the over as well.
Oh, the play is the over here. I mean, come on. You've got Mike Leach against his former team with the way that whole thing went down. He's going to try to hang 100 on Texas Tech if he can. So, I'm not so, bullish on the spread in this case with 9 points and it being a lot in this case. I mean, it's not like these two teams are that far apart. But the reality is Will Rogers is one of the more underrated quarterbacks in all of college football, not just in the SEC. It's a more prolific passing attack. And look, on the other side, you've got a Texas Tech team that's seen Tyler Shuck to start the year, then Henry Columbia, who got banged up. Then we saw Donovan Smith, the freshman. I mean, it's going to be hard to necessarily tell what it's going to be. If it's Smith at the end of the season, he's got some ability to run the football too, as well as a passing attack. But I love the over. It's not for Mississippi State alone putting up a bunch of points, just as in kind of a revenge or a cattiness that Mike Leach might bring to this one. But I also think you could see them end up covering that big spread. But the over is definitely a play in this game.
Yeah, the over 4-1 in the last 5 Mississippi State games. That'll be a fun one to watch. Next one, too, Holiday Bowl. I used to go to this one a few times just over the past few years. This year, they're in a new home, though, Petco Park. UCLA's first bowl game since 2017. But North Carolina State's solid defense allowed under 20 points per game, looking to reach 10 wins for the first time since 2002. The Wolfpack, a small favorite in this game. So let's go Brady first. What do you like?
Yeah, a small favorite in this case. So I'll be willing to lay the point. I just think NC State's overall the better team. When you look at their passing attack, and Devin Leary kind of got mixed in the shuffle of all the other good quarterback play, like you heard DK talk about a minute ago in the ACC. He threw for 35 touchdown passes this year, over 3,400 yards. And look, he's coming back in 2022. I think the biggest thing, too, is their All-American tackle, Ikem Ekwonu. He's going to actually play in this game. Now, he is slated to be a first-round pick at tackle, but he's one of those guys you might thought opt out. Instead, he's opting in. He's choosing to play in this game. So that's huge for him. This will be a tough attack taking on a UCLA team that likes to run the football, so they might eat up a good chunk of the clock. But I'm willing to lay the 1 point in this case. I think that's the safer bet here. If I had to make a bet as far as the over-under, I'd probably take the over. I think even though as good as NC State's defense has been, UCLA will have their moments. Chip Kelly, he has his personnel or formation that he's going to bring out that he hasn't showed before for this NC State matchup that may catch them off guard early in this game and then see how they adjust. But I expect Devin Leary to put up some points, some big numbers in this one versus a high-pressure attack from UCLA. So go ahead and lay the point.
All right, so Jenny, we might have to come up with something here live on the fly, and our producer Jack can help us, because when we're on the same side, we have lock unity, we see confetti come down. But what about we're on opposite sides of both? I feel like we need battleships or some sort of
I think we need like
cannons.
a big X, like big X's going across the screen.
Yeah, exactly. We need something. We are on opposite sides of the fence on this one. I think this will be a highly competitive game. I trust UCLA a little bit more. They really finished the season strong. They lost to Oregon, lost to Utah, back-to-back games. You're wondering which direction is it going to go. Then they won 3 straight to finish out the season, and I thought that was big. There also was the flirtation with Chip Kelly, meeting with Oregon, possibly going back home. He stays there. I think his players will appreciate that. Motivation, I think, will be a factor closer to home. I think they'll be able to travel a little bit better. And then I like the under. You mentioned the points per game that NC State has been pretty stout. I think they'll hold it lower scoring. I think UCLA will bring some exotic blitzes that could confuse Devin Leary some. The total at 59.5, just a little bit too high for me, so I'll lean on the under on this one as well.
I'm surprised you guys don't disagree on more things. That's the first time that's what we need.
No, hold on. I am shocked that DK is not picking one of the better teams, a ranked team in the ACC. He has carried the flag for this entire year. Now he's going out and he's trumpeting the Pac-12 in the West Coast instead of his ACC. He must have rubbed off on me.
I'm able to separate that bias. I'm able to set it aside and make expert picks. I'm able to do that.
That's smart. Yeah. Just put it all aside. All right. The Guaranteed Rate Bowl. You got to love some of these bowl game names. The Mountaineers, they started 2-4, needed to win their last 2 games to reach 6-6 to become bowl eligible. They did it. 8-4 Golden Gophers, they're favored in this one by 4.5. The over under a very low 45. All right. We'll start with Brady.
Okay, and the over-under is set at 45 for a reason, in part because the style of play of Minnesota that likes to run the football a lot, and they've gone through a bunch of running backs this season. This is what this game is about. It's a contrast as far as style of football. Minnesota wants to be physical at the line of scrimmage with a massive offensive line and run the football with Kai Thomas, their freshman, who stepped in for the injured Trey Potts, who stepped in for the injured Mohamed Ibrahim earlier this year, and Marquise Irving. That's really what they want to do. They want to lean on you and continue to push you off the line of scrimmage, run the football, and then Tanner Morgan will take some shots from time to time with that RPO offense when the moment calls for it. But outside of that, you look at West Virginia, Jared Dagey's going to have to really carry the load in this one. Liddy Brown's not playing in this game. He's their 1,000-yard rusher for West Virginia. So They do have some big playability on the outside. I just don't think they're going to be able to stop the rushing attack. And I think they're going to have a hard time moving Minnesota, especially their front seven, off the line of scrimmage. So I'm going to go ahead and lay the 4.5 points here. I do think this game hits the over when it's all said and done. I think there'll be enough scoring to go over the 45, but not much more than that.
All right, bring out the battleships, bring out the X's, whatever we got, because we're on opposite sides again. All right, no Letty Brown. I think he's a great running back, but I don't think it's going to be this massive loss. I do think they'll be able to plug in a backup with Jarrett Dagey at quarterback and still work the same game plan. But I'm all about momentum and like who wants it more. I feel like Minnesota's season was a little more underwhelming from what their preseason expectations were. Neil Brown's squad came in, finished strong. They wanted to get to this position. They do it. They also, Kirk Sirocco was hired at Minnesota, came from West Virginia. Minnesota just fired their offensive coordinator, Mike Sanford. I'm curious to know exactly what the play calling is going to look like, what the play offensive game plan is going to look like. And then it's hard for me to get out of my mind the losses that Minnesota had to Bowling Green, who was not very good from the MAC, and an Illinois team in the Big Ten who was better than we thought, but still not one of the better teams in the Big Ten. So I'll take West Virginia. I'll scoop up those points. I'll follow the underdog trend, and I'll say under. I think this one could be a little bit of an uglier game, not because of great defense, but because of sputtering offenses.
Another red X to finish off the December 28th games. That one is going to be at 10:15. Let's recap these picks. We have much more to come, but first let's take a look at December 28th. So both liking the under in the Frisco Bowl, both like Auburn in the matchup against Houston. The only confetti, the agreement of the First Responder Bowl, both of you liked the Louisville pick and the under in that one. Now, as far as red X's go, total disagreement when it comes to the Holiday Bowl and the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. Well, we got more picks after the break, including the Alamo Bowl between Oregon and Oklahoma, both schools with new coaches in 2022. Who will get the lock at the Alamo Bowl in San Welcome back to HQ. We are going over all of our bowl picks, and today we are looking at December 29th for the next few minutes. So I can't wait to watch the Fenway Bowl. I'm a little bit biased on where they're playing that one. We got the Pinstripe Bowl, too, in New York at 2:15. That's between Virginia Tech and Maryland. The Cheez-It Bowl in Orlando, Florida. That's at 5:45 between Clemson and Iowa State. That's going to be a very interesting one. And the Alamo Bowl between Oklahoma and Oregon. All eyes will definitely be on that one. Let's welcome in our Brady Quinn and Danny Cannell for more bowl chatter. Let's start with the Fenway Bowl, a place very special to my heart. This one between SMU and Virginia. Now, this game has the highest betting total of bowl season, and it's no surprise Virginia is one of the teams involved in it. So Virginia favored in this one by 2.5. The over/under 71.5. I mean, that's a high number. Danny, we'll start with you. What do you think?
First of all, I want to know how our very own and your very own Will Middlebrooks isn't like the face of the Fenway Bowl. Like, we have to make a petition. His face has to be plastered everywhere promoting this one. Maybe we can make that happen.
Yeah.
This bowl, so I look at this bowl and I'm trying to figure out, like, all right, I mean, obviously we're all trying to figure out what are we going to get in this game. I feel like Virginia's a little bit of a mess right now. Bronco Mendenhall, really, that was one of the surprises of the season when he decided to step down and, just take some time off from the game of football. And then Robert Anai, their offensive coordinator, who really was a big reason why this offensive attack was so prolific and they're throwing the ball all over the yard. He's not going to be there for the bowl. Brennan Armstrong will. So what matters the most? I don't know. Then you've got SMU. Their coach, Sonny Dykes, leaves and takes the job at TCU. This one is confusing for me. And then we have this massive point total. And yes, Fenway is in Boston where the weather could be a factor. I'll lean towards SMU. I feel like even though Sonny Dykes left for TCU, I talked to him throughout this year. I think his players understand. I think they'll feel like this game is bigger. Virginia, I wonder where their mindset is. And I'm going to take the under. I think the weather could be a factor. SMU plays in a warm weather spot. Virginia, most of their season is done before it gets too bad in Charlottesville. So I think that'll slow down these passing attacks somewhat, and I'll take the under. Plus, Tanner Mordecai's without his top two receivers who are out for this game. I think this one will be lower scoring than 71.5.
Put up the X. We're on completely opposite sides here. You can talk about the weather all you want, but there needs to be defense to be played at some point. I don't think either one of these two teams is going to be able to play defense to the level they need to to not allow the other opponent to go the over here. So bottom line is I'm going to lay the 2.5 points as well because what you just mentioned there. Tanner Mordecai is going to be without two. Danny Gray and Reggie Roberson will be out for this one. That's always tough as a quarterback when you don't have your best weapons going up against a team that can easily match you. And I also think you could have a UVA team that wants to maybe send their coach out in the best way possible with a win in a bowl game like that. So I think there's going to be a lot of offense. If Ben was used to seeing a lot of offense out there in baseball games, you're going to see it now in a football game. And I think you're going to see Brennan Armstrong, who's second on the team in rushing, and obviously one of those prolific passers we've seen in college football this year, throwing for over 4,400 yards. I think he's going to show out too. And maybe this is even, kind of putting him more on the map looking into the future. But the bottom line is SMU has lost 4 of the last 5 after that 7-0 start. I'm just not really sure where this team is at right now, especially with what you mentioned about Sonny Dykes moving forward. I know it looks maybe murky for the future for UVA, but at least they've got their guy right now for the future, or I should say for the future, but moving forward, their incoming coach obviously is there for the future. But I'm saying for Bronco Mendenhall, it seemed like a personal decision. Maybe they want to send him out the right way. So I'm laying the 2.5 points, and I do think this thing hits the over. Just too much offense, too little defense.
I got a bone to pick. Where's the red X? Let's put it up there. So the last time you disagreed, our producer Jack put a big red X over Danny's face. But Brady, he waited for you until we were all on the screen. So I gotta chat. There we go.
There it is.
Much
Thank
better.
you.
That makes me feel good.
Thank you, Jenny.
You're welcome. I'm here for you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So we're going from the Red Sox and the Fenway Bowl to the Pinstripes. You see where I'm doing with that? Maryland favored against Virginia Tech. The Hokies, they fired Justin Fuente. The Terps are back in the bowl game for the first time since 2016. It's been a little bit. There's motivation for both of these teams on the line here. The over-under is set at 55. Brady, we'll start with you.
Yeah, look, I don't really have much on this game just because I'm no idea what to expect. Both these teams got off to decent starts to begin the season. Maryland was 4-0. Then they got drummed on national television in their house versus Iowa. And it seemed like the rest of the season fell by the wayside. You look at Virginia Tech, they started off obviously with a nice top 15 win versus UNC to begin the year. And then it just kind of bounced all around after that. They ended up firing their head coach, Justin Fuente, and Braxton Burmeister, the starting quarterback. He's in the transfer portal. So it's tough to get a feel for all of this. I think if I'm just looking at these two teams, the talent, Maryland can't stop anyone. They were just atrocious on defense this year. So I'll go ahead and take the 3.5 points, even though I do think Talia Tagovailoa will be able to make some plays in the passing game. I think the other play in this one is just the under. With not knowing what to expect from Virginia Tech's offense at the quarterback position, I think they'll tend to want to lean on the running game a little bit, and it could be one of those games that gets shortened due to that. So I'll play the under. I'll take the 3.5 points. Danny, I don't feel good about either one of these bets in this game.
Yeah, this is one of those games that makes me ask myself, do we really need 42 bowl games? Because I don't even know if the players want to be there. But since we've got games, we might as well break them down. You mentioned it. I'm on the other side. I trust Talia Tagovailoa a little bit more on his 24 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. I still think they'll be able to put up some points. But I do agree with you on the under. I just look at these offenses. I don't trust either one implicitly to say, okay, they're going to run away with it. I do think this will be an uglier game. Again, weather could be a factor. Playing in New York, just outside in the Bronx. The Virginia Tech, the health of the program, bring in a defensive coach from Penn State. I wonder if they get some solid effort on the defensive side of the ball, trying to impress Brent Pry, their new coach that's coming in from Penn State. But aside from that, I don't feel great about either side. I'll lean Maryland because at least their quarterback is going to be out there playing. But I'll say the under because I do think this one will get some better effort on the defensive side of the ball to both these teams.
A lot of confidence from both of you. I'm really feeling it through the screen right now. The over is 4-10 in the last 14 Virginia Tech games. So both of you agreeing on the under in this one. All right, the next one's supposed to be a close one, the Cheez-It Bowl. Clemson not in the position they're typically in at this point of the season, going up against Iowa State. They had a disappointing season as well after making the Big 12 title game just a year ago. Over-under set at a low 44 in this one. Clemson favored by 1. Danny.
So Brady might be surprised on this one. I'm fading the ACC again. I was able to watch this conference a lot. I know. But I look out there and the ACC wasn't very good. And Clemson wasn't very good on the offensive side of the ball. They have massive question marks now that Brent Venables has gone to Oklahoma, Tony Elliott's gone to Virginia, and already an offense that was struggling for DJ Uiagalelei to start his first year out really was a struggle. But the one thing I can trust with or without Brent Venables the defense comes to play. So I think they'll have some success against Iowa State, but especially without Breece Hall, who has opted out of this game to take on the NFL draft. But I do think this is a Matt Campbell signature special. Like, play the chip on the shoulder. You know, we're going to go out there. It's us against this blue blood, this team that's, you know, had this dynasty going. I think he has his players amped up. And Jenny mentioned it. This is not a position that Clemson is used to. They're typically prepping for a playoff game. Now they have all this turnover on the staff. They've had more opt-outs for in the transfer portal and NFL draft than they've had in years past. I wonder where their psyche is. So I'll take the pesky underdog in Iowa State and the under, because I do think Clemson's defense will keep this lower scoring. But in the end, I think Iowa State comes out on top.
Yeah, I really think both defenses will keep this lower scoring. And you talked about some of the Clemson struggles. So that's why I love the under here. I think that's the play. You're really like just weighing in on that 1 point that you're getting in this one. Look, I'll gladly lay the 1 point. I think someone talked about it before, Matt Campbell maybe, and talking about the culture there in Iowa State not being, you know, 4-star, 5-star recruits, maybe in reference to an Oklahoma team. But look, Clemson's got a lot of former 5-star, 4-star recruits. Regardless of who's decided to opt out, opt in, whatever the case may be, they're loaded with better speed, better talent. The question really becomes the coaching staff, the instability. Brent Venables now taking over as head coach at Oklahoma. He's obviously leaving the defensive coordinator position. They've hired and elevated up, at least for this game internally, Tony Elliott. We just talked about UVA. He'll be their future head coach. He's their offensive coordinator. They've again elevated from inside of their program to do it for this particular game. So the bottom line is, I just think Clemson's the more talented team. I think that will showcase itself too, and especially considering Iowa State doesn't have their best player in Breece Hall. He was 6th in the country in rushing, with 20 and had 20 rushing touchdowns. That's a huge piece of your offense that really made things go. So look, the under's the play, but I'll gladly lay the 1 point here with Clemson.
Cheez-It Bowl, that'll be at 5:45 p.m. on December 29th. Okay, the Alamo Bowl. Oregon and Oklahoma, both schools saw their college football playoff runs disappear late in the season. Both teams losing their coaches. The Sooners favored here by 4.5. Brady, we'll start with you.
Look, this is a tough one because I think when you're looking at this matchup, at 1 point late in the season, we were like, oh, this could be a playoff matchup.
Yep.
Like, these two teams could be very well playing for a national championship. And obviously the season didn't work out that way for either team. Both teams lost their head coaches, clearly. Lincoln Riley to USC, Mario Cristobal to the University of Miami. So how do they both handle that? Well, look, I think there's more stability there at Oklahoma, at least in my opinion, considering you're looking at Bob Stoops as the interim head coach, who really stepped in right away and helped calm some things down. Now, they have a lot of defensive starters out. Brian Asamoah, Nick Benito, Isaiah Thomas, Perion Winfrey is out as well. Those are big-time players. You're talking about the leading tackler and obviously the guys who get all the pressure up front. So that's going to be a huge loss for this. They still have Caleb Williams. They still have a ton of playmakers on offense and another team who's recruited well. So I think they can overcome that. And even though, again, Kayvon Thibodeau's not playing for Oregon, they've got some guys who have opted out. There's leading wide receiver as well. I think if you're comparing the two teams, I trust more in what I saw from Caleb Williams this year and be able to make enough plays compared to Anthony Brown. So I'll go ahead and lay the 4.5 points. And I think I go with Big Game Bob, who comes back to help Oklahoma get a win here in the Alamo Bowl.
Give it to me. Give me that X. Give me the red X. I'm on the other side of this one. Now, I will say this. If I happen to, at some point go take an interim job at Florida State, I would hope Brady would pick me too. Like, we're boys in this industry. He's boys with Big Game Bob too, so he better go with him. I do think it's a great story too, what Bob Stoops has done for Oklahoma. I don't know what the heck we're going to get in this game. Like, all these, I think maybe you go watch and play a live bet. I took the other side because I feel like I trust Anthony Brown, Travis Dye a little bit more. I think they can get physical up front a little bit more with Oklahoma. I think, bottom line, you might see in this game a lot of players kind of doing that, like, hey, you got me on the defense side of the ball when they're talking to each other in between plays. Hey, let's not get too crazy on this one. Let's make it to an offseason good, because of what we were talking about. These are teams that had playoff hopes. And I get the Alamo Bowl is a nice reward, but I think these players want to make it through healthy and try to chase that playoff again and a national championship next year. When we see that happen, I think we see less defense. And I'm going to follow, again, the underdogs have been the trend through bowl season. So I'll follow that trend, and I'll go with the over with not much defense being played.
Some more red X's on December 29th games. Fellas, don't go anywhere. We have more bowl picks to come with you shortly as we take a little quick recap of the December 29th game. So total disagreement in the Fenway Bowl. Brady likes Virginia in the over. Danny likes SMU in the under. You both like the under in the Pinstripe and Cheez-It Bowl. And some more red X and disagreement with the Alamo Bowl. Brady going with the Sooners in the under. Danny likes the Ducks and the over. After the break, our bowl game picks continue, including the Peach Bowl. It was supposed to be an exciting matchup between Kenny Walker and Kenny Pickett. Good stuff, but both of them are out. Do opt-outs change the picks? Find out next.
And we're back. Time to make more bowl picks with Danny Cannell and Brady Quinn. Looking at the December 30th slate of games, a battle of the Carolinas and the Duke's Mayo Bowl. We've got Tennessee and Purdue hanging out in Nashville for the Music City Bowl. Meanwhile, ACC champs Pittsburgh will go up against number 10 Michigan State in Atlanta in the Peach Bowl. And in Vegas, Wisconsin goes head-to-head with Arizona State. And with the table set, let's bring back Danny and Brady to break all these games down. Brady, let's start with you. And a look at this game between UNC and South Carolina. Sam Howell looks like he's making his final start for the Tar Heels. The over-under set at 58.5. Is that set a little too high for this one?
I believe it's set a little bit too high, and only because I'm not really that bullish on South Carolina being able to score many points in this one. Like, this game to me is all about Sam Howell and seeing if he can make a case or a final case that he should be a first-round pick at quarterback. He's one of the more prolific passers in UNC history. You're going to see him connect to Josh Downs, who's one of the better wide receivers in the ACC this year, and really the rushing attack with Ty Chamberlain. He'll pitch in there. You know, he's second on the team in rushing. They don't play much defense. So bottom line, South Carolina will have their opportunities, but I'm willing to lay the 9 points. So I don't necessarily love this game as far as laying bets. I think the under is the play, though, if you had to pick between the two. I do know this, Danny. Someone at the end of the game is going to get a Mayo bath when it's all said and done, since both head coaches have agreed to it. Whoever wins, they get that Mayo bath. So you should at least watch this game if you want to bet, to watch the bath after the game.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think Duke's, the Mayo company that sponsors this bowl, realized what a missed opportunity it was last year. Remember the end of the game? Remember everybody's like, ooh, they're going to get a Mayo bath, and no one did it. Both these coaches smart enough to know a viral moment. It may be uncomfortable, but it's great for recruiting. Shane Beamer and Mac Brown, obviously great recruiters. So they're like, sure, and we can donate the proceeds to charity. Sign us up. I do think Mac Brown gets the Mayo bath. I do think, similar to you, by the way, we have some confetti to let rain on us because we're on the same side of this one. I want to see where the leadership come from. Then every game we've talked about, we've seen opt-outs, we've seen players, transferring. Sam Howell coming back, and Mike alluded to it, maybe his last game, his last chance to resonate. I think his players in that locker room will respond to that. And I also think that North Carolina has more talent. While Shane Beamer is doing a fantastic job recruiting to Columbia, he brings in Spencer Rattler. Those recruits aren't there yet. And Mac Brown, going on his third year consecutively, getting top 15 recruiting classes, they have a youth movement there that comes up, and they do show out in their bowl games. Gave Texas A&M a pretty good fight last year, even with some players opting out because of young players. I think this game, they get the best of South Carolina. I think they're the better team, the better program. So I'll lay those 9, but I'm with you on the under in this one.
Let's just say that we're happy that the Mayo will be poured over there and the confetti's poured over here. Because if you did both at once, it'd be the worst cleanup either of these coaches would have to go through. All right, guys. Well, let's go to the Volunteers taking on Purdue. Volunteers not having to go very far. Tennessee in the Music City Bowl against the Boilermakers, who were 2-2 against ranked teams this year. Brady, quick question here. Are you jumping on the Boilermakers train? After all, Hendon Hooker for Tennessee decided he's going to come back, so good news there for the Vols.
Yeah, no, I'm not jumping on Purdue here. I actually like the fact this is a home game for Tennessee. We talked about the proximity just to their campus. So there should be a lot of Volunteers fans who are there. And they should be excited about the fact that Josh Heupel's coming back as their head coach. There's a thought that he might leave to go take the Oklahoma job. Ended up not being the case. And if you look at all the first-year head coaches in college football, that 7-5 record was the best of any first-year head coach in the Power 5. So there should be a lot of optimism here. That's one of the reasons to lay the 4.5 points, outside of the fact that Hendon Hooker put together one heck of a year. 26 touchdowns, over 2,600 yards, only 3 interceptions, and they can run the football too. I mean, this is a team that averages over 212 yards on the ground per game. So it's going to be a big-time challenge for Purdue, and it really contrasts of styles. Aiden O'Connell likes to air things out. Purdue's one of the more prolific teams in the Big Ten. They throw for about 340 yards per game. So you will see a fair amount of scoring, but they're going to be without George Karlaftis, one of the top picks in this upcoming draft, as well as their outstanding wide receiver, David Bell, both players which you played big-time roles in those upsets over Iowa and Michigan State earlier this year. So I'm laying the 4.5 with Tennessee, a home game. And I think if you had to play the over-under, play the under here. Maybe not quite as much offense.
Oh, man. Get up the X. Throw them up. Opposite sides on this one. I think these teams are both going to go fast. I think they want to get possessions. Jeff Brom, even without David Bell, Aiden O'Connell has been able to put up some pretty big numbers. I do think that's a devastating loss. No George Karlaftis should make it pretty easy for Tennessee to move the ball up the field. Love the future for Josh Heupel, but we know they want to go hyper fast too. So even if these teams don't have like a high success rate offensively and score every possession, they're going to get a lot of possessions, both of them. So I actually like the over in this one. I didn't love Purdue here. This was sort of just a dog play. I don't disagree too much with Tennessee with Brady there, but what I think you should play is the over in this one. I think this will be a higher scoring affair with both teams able to put up some pretty big numbers.
Well, the agreement can only last for so long here. All right, let's go over to the Peach Bowl. Pitt against Sparty. No Kenny Pickett for the Panthers. Kenneth Walker going to sit this one out for Michigan State as well. MSU favored by 2.5. The over-under set at 56. Danny, who do you like and where are you going with this over-under?
Mike, tell me what the heck I study for this game. Like, am I going to study Nick Patty, the backup quarterback who's hardly played at all for Pitt? Like, what? This drives me nuts, and I get that people might be frustrated, and I think Kenny Pickett should have played. I think this would be an opportunity for him, much like Matt Corral at Ole Miss, to say, yeah, I want to finish what I started, but he's been there forever. He's played a lot of football games, and even more importantly, his offensive coordinator, Mark Whipple, decided to leave before the bowl game. So he doesn't even have him there. He's on to Nebraska. So I get it, but how do you pick one in this one? Then Kenneth Walker III, who had maybe, the best season for a running back. He's a running back. He, puts himself through injuries there. So I get these players opting out. What I can't figure out, why doesn't Chick-fil-A, who sponsors the Peach Bowl, why don't they pony up a $50,000 appearance fee, for these players? Let them use some of that NIL money to go out there and actually play in the game. And I know they have $1 million at stake, but for one game, pay them 50 or 100 grand, I bet both these players would have played, but that's another issue. Back to the pick itself, I'll go with Pitt. I think Pitt, historic season. Pat Narduzzi's defense was also one of the unsung heroes. I do think they'll be able to get pressure on the quarterback. They led the ACC in sacks, really able to pressure the quarterback. But both teams, without their offensive stars, has me leaning towards the under. So that's probably the play I like the best more than the side. I'll take Pitt, my ACC affiliation, but I like the under better than anything.
I'm right there with you on the under. You're missing two superstars, two guys who are up for the Heisman. Obviously, Kenny Pickett got to go to New York as a finalist. And the reality is, without those two stars, you're going to have less offense in this game. I'm leaning the other way, though, as far as laying the 2.5 points here with Michigan State. I think when it comes down to it, Peyton Thorne had his moments this year throwing the football. They still have some playmakers on the outside. You talk about Pitt's pass rush, and they've got some of that, but so does Michigan State. They can get after it two up front. And then also Jordan Simmons, I think he can take over a little bit of that rushing attack that's left behind with Kenneth Walker. I think the biggest question is, can he get as many yards after contact that Kenneth Walker became so famous for this year? That's the biggest question. But I'll lay the 2.5 points here, but the under is definitely the play.
It's amazing. I think when you saw this game and you look at the billing with Kenneth Walker and then Kenny Pickett, everyone thinks, oh man, we're going to get a great offensive performance in this one, and then you take both those guys out. And now it's going to be a defensive struggle between those two defensive lines there. But it will be interesting to see. Danny, I thought you made an interesting point there about that NIL stuff. I wonder if Bulls will move towards that format, considering all these guys have been opting out. Meanwhile, in the Las Vegas Bowl, every reporter's dream assignment, right? Everyone wants to go to the desert, Wisconsin, Arizona State. Brady, who's leaving the Strip with a win?
It's going to be Wisconsin. I mean, I'm not even sure what to make of Arizona State's season this year, especially with USC down. I feel like everything was kind of open for them to potentially win the Pac-12 South. And look, Jaden Daniels had such a disappointing year. He decided to come back next season. And he's going up against one of the best defenses in the country. They're top 6, I believe, in scoring, but just overall, this is one of the stingier defenses, more on tougher fronts. And even though he plays a part in that rushing attack for Arizona State, yards are going to be hard to come by in big plays for that matter. And then really the story becomes, can Arizona State handle the physicality of this Wisconsin offense, who with Braylon Allen at running back just absolutely took off this season, had over 1,100 yards in just 11 games as a freshman. So obviously an incredibly bright future, but he even helped Graham Mertz come along, even their passing attack, in particular to their wide receivers. So I'll lay the 7 points here. The under is definitely the play. I just think Arizona State's going to have a hard time getting anything going in this one.
Man, our guy Pete Prisco is going to be upset with you, just fading his Arizona State Sun Devils all along. We're going to have to remind him of that one. I took the Sun Devils because I think a touchdown is too much. I love the under. I am 100% agreeing with you on the under. Wisconsin's defense, one of the better defenses in the country. But Arizona State's no slouch either. They're third in the Pac-12 against the rush, second in total defense. I think they'll come to play too. And Wisconsin has kind of gone back to that mindset of, man, we thought Graham Mertz was going to be a dynamic quarterback, but they've gone back to running the football. Jaden Daniels, as you mentioned, for Arizona State has been incredibly up and down. So both of these quarterbacks, I think, will be doing a lot of handing off in this one. I think Arizona State's defense will keep it within that 7 points, but I think it'll be a low-scoring game no matter what. And both of these teams, they're going to enjoy Vegas too. So I wonder if they come out a little sloppy early as well.
Yeah, that's always the one variable, and wild card in all this is what does Vegas do to some of these young guys out there. All right, guys, thanks very much. Stick around. But here's a quick look at the picks that we just went through. Agreement at the top, and then after that, the Red X's were pretty much piling up after all. And then that Tennessee-Purdue game, we saw Brady go with Tennessee and the under. Danny went Purdue and the over. And Pitt, Michigan State, top 15 showdown there. We saw Brady go with Michigan State and the under. Danny did agree there at the under, but went with Pitt. And of course, the game we just talked about, Wisconsin at -7. Brady liked the Badgers. Danny liked the Sun Devils. So we'll see what happens.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.